Hello, everyone. We are approaching the halfway point on day 5 of WFS Live, powered by Ronaldo. This is about to be panel number 3 of 6. It's a jam-packed day for you. And of course, if you want to share about this event on social media, please do so and tag us in at WF Summit on Twitter, at World Football Summit on Instagram. And if you're any media present watching this, then you can go to the virtual press room by EFE to see any snippets and any downloads there that you can access. And of course, if you're someone who's been involved in this virtual conference throughout, but you missed maybe one or two of the panels, don't worry, they'll all be visible for you after the event 24 hours later. So that's a way of making sure you can catch up on the content. So football is a sport of culture, of tradition, of history. But one thing that no sport can resist is technical revolution. Sport as a whole has actually been quite slow to harness tech compared to other industries. But football is now right at the center of it, isn't it? With the advent of goal line technology and those three letters that we oh so love, VAR, video assistant referee. I'm sure I can see some of you shaking your heads in disbelief at this point. Now, the former has been received generally positively. The situation with the latter is a little bit more contentious. VAR has had its detractors. It's been interpreted and applied differently across different countries and different competitions. It's led to controversy in some cases and plenty of full-blooded declarations on the subject from players, managers and fans alike. But it will need time to bed in to become more quickly, more correctly applied. And in any case, you get the sense we're beyond the point of no return. You can't really imagine it being reversed, can you? But that's only as far as the changes so far are concerned. What more technologies could come into play as we gaze towards the future? We've discussed many of them through WFS Live Powered by Ronaldo this week, the likes of virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and machine learning all contribute to how we deliver the beautiful game and indeed improve that delivery. How much of a role could any of the above have to play in future? Well, we could barely have a better figurehead to reflect this from a referee's perspective and also a fine journalist to discuss it with him or even hold him to account. So please welcome for our latest Q&A the former international referee and chairman of the referees committee, Pierluigi Collina, and from ESPN, Italian sports journalist, sports author and radio and television presenter, Gabriele Marcotti. This should be an absolutely fascinating fireside chat. Gabriele, it's over to you.
Thank you, David, and thank you to everyone who's listening, and thank you to Pierluigi for joining me here. Pierluigi, let's get right into this because you started out as a referee at a time, obviously, there was no VAR. There probably wasn't the technology even to have the sort of VAR that we have today. Can you talk about your feelings from a refereeing standpoint um, about VAR? What would you have said to 35-year-old or 30-year-old Collina? What would he have said about VAR, and how is that different from what Collina today says?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Definitely was a different time. I don't want to say that was a different football, but certainly the differences are very clear. The technology used to show a football match were completely different. Today we have cameras with super high definition, 5K, showing really everything is going on the field of play. So it's almost normal, I would say, that the referee with only two eyes and running on the field of play, even is very well prepared, even he is 100% fit, even if he knows everything about the match is going to referee, it is possible that he will miss something or he will take a wrong decision. Not to have this wrong decision influencing anyone, the club, the team, the player suffering the wrong decision, but the referee himself, who can be damaged by a wrong decision taken in his future, to avoid that this can occur. Technology offers a very important parachute to save everything. So when I was a 35 years old referee, probably the situation was different. We thought at the time that we could have survived without technology. Today, in our day life, We live completely different. We are surrounded by technology. We use all the possible tools in our life. So it's difficult to have the field of play as a sort of Indian reserve where nothing can be used, where everyone knows what is going on, but the referee on the field of play, and ironically, the referee is the one who has to make the decision. So I would tell the Collinas, 35 years old, it will be better. It will be easier.
So one of the arguments that you touched on there is this idea of it's like a parachute or a safety net for a referee, because referees will make mistakes. And just so I understand this correctly, because there is so much scrutiny on the games at the top level in the professional game, because there's television, because there's replays, a referee's, but perhaps unfairly, one mistake from a referee can seriously damage them, can hurt their career, hurt the way they're perceived in the next match. Whereas if they make the same mistake and VAR steps in and says, no, please look, or fixes the mistake, people become more accepting of the referee. Is that the idea?
Nobody care of a wrong decision taken on the field of play corrected by the VAR. What counts is the final outcome. What counts is the final decision. If the final decision is correct, I would say, I wrongly said nobody, because people like me dealing with refereeing, we are certainly caring of the wrong decision initially taken by the referee on the field, because we need to improve his quality, we need to put him in a condition to take a correct decision. So basically, this is our activity, this is our job. But in terms of outcome, if the wrong decision is corrected by the VAR, at the end of the day, a correct decision is taken, so nobody care and nobody remember. While a wrong decision taken in an important match, a key decision taken in a wrong match, we had experiences in the past, can really kill the referee's career. So it's a safety net very important for referees.
It seems to me that technology plays a big part in VAR, but relationships and the ability to communicate also plays a big part, because you're talking about the relationship where a video assistant referee must tell his colleague on the pitch, hey, you made a mistake. The colleague on the pitch must then have the humility to go and look at the screen and recognize the mistake. Are there going to be some personality types that are going to be better suited to working together, to seeing themselves as teammates rather than competitors?
I think, Gabriele, the first thing we have to consider is referees are non-native VAR. If I compare myself with my granddaughter, 7 years old, she uses electronic tools as something normal for her, because she's native. She's used to do. She thinks normally. Referees today started refereeing and they grew up as referees without VAR. So this generation of referees is in a, let's say, in a sort of big change. They have to adapt their mentality that was built up in years and to what they need with VAR. To be clear, a referee on the field of play has been, let's say, educated to defend the decision taken against everybody. Today he has to change his mentality, because he has to understand and accept that his decision on the field of play can be overruled based on something that can be shown on a monitor. So it's a matter of mentality. Another thing to be considered, I would say more than personality, is a sort of wrong idea of solidarity. If you belong to a team, you try always to protect your teammates. And if your teammate made a mistake, you try to find everything to say, no, he was correct. It's a sort of friendship, I would say. Referees must understand that the solidarity or the friendship they have to show or they want to show is to tell their colleague, be careful, you might made a mistake, so it's better that you have another chance by watching on a video, on a monitor, the incident you have assessed probably wrongly. And finally, you can avoid a mistake. I repeat, this is something that they have to learn. Is a mentality they have to change, they have to adapt. David said that the three letters VAR is something that are already part of football, but we have not to forget that the first time I participated into a session, into a discussion, to find out a way to help the referee with technology was fall 2014. So in 5 years, in something more than 5 years, we went from nothing, from scratch, to having VAR used in all main competition in the world, including the World Cup 2018, the World Cup, the Women's World Cup 2019, and many of the leagues around the world. But it's still something new. So it's a process that is moving forward quite quickly, but certainly there is something to be refined.
I think one of the challenges in having people both in football and outside and who are just supporters, one of the difficulties they find in understanding VAR is they don't seem to fully understand that the VAR is communicating continuously with the referee. And when a decision is made, or sometimes when a decision is not made, when there is no evident video assistant referee and there's no on-field review, for example, they wonder if they're talking, they're wondering if the VAR saw the situation, if he's aware of it. Is there a better way to communicate why certain decisions are made so that sometimes, going back to what you said about solidarity and or this false solidarity, so that in the end it's very clear to people who made a final decision and why, without this confusion?
Well, what I can say is VAR has been designed to have full control of every possible incident occurring during the match. So there are one or two video match officials, depending on the setup, but in most of the big leagues, there are two video match officials who are following every single incident occurring during the match. And they are following, of course, on a monitor and using all the cameras available in the stadium. So nobody can say that the video match official missed something, missed an incident. What is different is the assessment, because it's not the technology offering the final answer, like with the goal line technology. It is the human being who is using the technology to make the final decision. So basically, at the end, there is the human being, and as you know, as we all know, human beings are not perfect. Mistake is part of our being humans. So what we try to do as FIFA, so every organization dealing with referees, FIFA has the task to support member association in their educational programs with refereeing, including VAR. What we are trying to do is to have consistent assessment, to have uniformity, to have consistent decision taken by video assistant referees, suggesting referees to review or not something on a pitch side monitor.
but still, as we see, there are still differences between countries. And while there are differences, traditionally there have been differences in the way games are played and the way they were officiated in the past. But I think increasingly, as the game becomes more globalized, we're seeing a greater uniformity on the pitch, also because you have so many foreign players and managers. But with VAR, we saw some very strong differences. We saw some countries, for example, not having almost zero on-field reviews. We saw other countries, for example, perhaps in an effort to be more transparent in judging offsides, for example, tracing lines on the pitch with software, and we haven't seen that elsewhere. I mean, does this, in your opinion, does this play into the way VAR is perceived when it feels different from one country to the next?
Well, I don't want to speak specifically on about single countries. I want to let's say underline that it is important to have consistent implementation of laws of the game in general, and of course VAR in particular all over the world, because this would make things more understandable and understood by people, but also easier for those who play a game or who coach a game, because it might be very complicated to switch from what you are used to do when you play domestically into a different way when you play internationally, either as a club or as a national team. So one of the objectives of FIFA is to really to try to have laws of the game implemented in the same way all over the world, with some differences which are understandable because there are some differences in countries, but they have to be very small differences.
More broadly across other sports, we've seen technology coming in. We've seen it in basketball. We've seen American football. Hockey. One thing that often comes up and that some people advocate is they say, okay, let's not have VAR with a guy in a booth. Let's give the two teams the right to go and challenge a decision that they don't like, that they think is incorrect. Obviously, FIFA hasn't gone down this route. What are your thoughts? I mean, I presume you don't believe that a challenge system is right for football.
Let me say that is not FIFA who didn't go through this way, is IFAB, because everything related to laws of the game is under the responsibility and the final decision of IFAB. So before deciding the current protocol in football with the VAR, with the video match officials assessing all the incidents, people from IFAB went through the experiences of different sports, different games that are different from football, because something that is working in basketball or in ice hockey or in American football or in cricket or in volleyball or in tennis, all sports where the technology is used to make a decision, something working in sports maybe doesn't work in football, because football is different from the rest. So they went through the experiences in all other sports and thought that the key point would have been to have every single incident monitored, assessed by someone in front of a screen. As I said before, there can be a human mistake in assessing something, but certainly nothing is going to be missed during a match, because all the incidents are monitored. If all the incidents are monitored, then it's difficult that a challenge to a club is or one of the two parts of the game is really needed, because nobody better than the video match official in terms of watching what is going on.
I want to go back for a second to, we mentioned goal line technology briefly versus offside. Now, goal line technology, we know there's a certain number of cameras, different angles, there's software, and in very quick time, they create a graphic representation where you see the line, you see the ball, and they tell you the distance. And goal line technology has been very well accepted. Very few people. There was one incident recently here in the Premier League, but generally it has worked. It has never been questioned. With something like the offside, the VAR protocol has chosen not to do that. They've said, okay, it's still going to be an objective decision, but we're just going to look at the replays and we're going to show the replays to the world instead of showing a drawing of a line and a foot or something like that, an equivalent of goal line technology. I just wanted to ask about that. Do you think people would have been more accepting if it had adopted that same black and white visual interpretation of goal line technology?
Well, let me say that goal line technology is an easiest exercise compared to offside, because you have a line, the goal line between the post under the bar, that's it. So if you have few cameras covering different angles, the cameras are standing in that position. Offside is something that can occur everywhere in roughly 55, 60 meters of an half field. So it's much more complicated to have, let's say, the same kind of approach goal line technology had. I can tell you that FIFA has a technology innovation department that is studying how technology can be developed, coordinating companies all over the world in trying to find the best technology that can offer answer, not only related to referees' decision, but generally speaking, technology and football. So some tests are going on. We had some tests during the last Club World Cup in Qatar to have an automatic. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not so precise in describing what is going on. But certainly, it's something that goes more into the direction of, let's say, a final answer given by a software or something similar. That might help to make the decision more accepted. So we are working. I go back. VAR is only 5 years old. He's a young boy who is learning, and certainly who will improve.
I want to go back to something else you said earlier when you talked about how VAR officials are non-VAR natives. In other words, every single VAR official started out as a referee, maybe as an assistant referee, because VAR hasn't been around very long. I think people don't always understand the skills that are involved in being a VAR, in being able to know what the camera angles are, being able to find the right pictures, being able to do it very, very quickly. Do you think at some point in the future, in the next 10 years, there will be people who will be trained specifically to be VARs rather than taking referees, and 1 week the referee officiates a match and the next week he goes in the booth? Because I imagine there are people who, when you look at a referee's skill set, a big part of it is also the human side, maintaining discipline, maintaining control. There might be some people who are very good at identifying exactly what they see on the pitch, but maybe are very bad at relating to other people and managing a game?
I think specializing or being specialized in something, it's something that help in better dealing with your activity. We had something similar in the past with the assistant referees. There was a time when assistant referees were referees who referees probably from lower categories who were a week central referee and the week after assistant referee. I had two experiences in my life as an assistant referee, and I can tell you they were two nightmares because that was not my specialty. I was not good in doing that. So it is more than probable that in the future we will have people, video match officials specialized in this. So we have now referees, we have now a category of referees, a category of assistant referees, and it is more than probable that in the future we will have a category of video match officials and specialized in doing this.
Talk about technology in football.
I repeat, it takes time. It takes time.
Of course. If you talk about technology in football, inevitably we talk about VAR, but there are other uses for technology. We don't have much time left, unfortunately, but I wanted to ask you about the use of technology to help referees prepare for matches, to help them study characteristics of the players, gain an advantage, make their job easier on the pitch. Can you talk a little bit about that and about some of the advancements that people might not know about?
No, it's true. It's a different part of the use of technology in refereeing. This is related to the preparation of a match. So technology has been widely used in the last years. I remember it is important. First of all, it's important to know everything I said before about the match a referee is going to referee. So studying, prepare yourself, and knowing everything, getting all the information is crucial. Technology helps. I remember before the World Cup final in 2002 when I refereed Germany against Brazil, I had to watch VHS for 90 minutes, 5 matches. So it took 1.5 days to get all this information. Today, technology can provide it very quickly, simply by clicking on your computer, and you can get dozens of images that can offer you information about how a team plays, how players play, and so on. Technology used also, particularly during this time of pandemic, to have courses. As I said before, FIFA has an important task that is support member association in refereeing education. We normally deliver courses all over the world. Today is impossible to do it in person, so we use technology to get connected referees all over the world or in specific countries with our instructors. So certainly technology plays an important role, not only during a match, but also before the match itself.
It's become a valuable study aid. I remember speaking to you around that time 15 years ago, and you talked about all the video cassettes that you watched and so on, which maybe is why today you have to wear glasses. But that is the price that you pay to go and to prepare. Our time here is coming to an end here at World Football Summit, powered by Ronaldo. Thank you so much to my guest, Pierluigi Collina, head of FIFA referees.
Thank you
very much indeed,
Gabriele.
Bye-bye,
everybody.
Thank you, Pierluigi. Just to reprise a couple of topics here that you've mentioned. I mean, the simple fact is we brought in VAR to improve the accuracy of decision taking in football, right? And what counts, as Pierluigi rightly said, is the final decision. If it's correct, that's what matters. No matter how you get to that outcome, that is ultimately what is the most important thing. But really interesting context, Pierluigi, about the referees having to change attitude towards VAR, how we have to be patient. As you mentioned, I mean, I can't believe it, but in 2014, we didn't have this. And now we do. And we have it in every sort of big tournament that there is in world football, every big competition. And that FIFA are trying to work hard to achieve the consistency across the board in terms of how laws of the game are implemented. Interesting question from Gab on whether a challenge system could work. Given short shrift, I think is probably the right way to phrase it. Yes, I'm not sure that would fully work in football as it does in cricket and in tennis. And yes, good context at the end there about how the referees use tech to prepare for a match, and the importance that FIFA feel is their responsibility to provide courses and education. I think we've really understood the perspective of a referee from a different angle today through technology. It remains a thankless task. Referees still don't get enough credit, certainly the credit that they deserve, but hopefully that too will change as technology has a greater impact. Gabriele and also Pierluigi, many thanks. We really appreciate your input for this conversation. Right then, ladies and gents, we continue as we move into panel 4 in just a moment. And this involves an anniversary which is coming up tomorrow, the 10th anniversary of Spain's FIFA World Cup win in South Africa. Don't go away.